Okay, Patrick, let's move across the United States then and the midterms.
So the U.S. midterm elections on Tuesday. I don't know how the coverage has been in the UK and elsewhere, but we're going to look at the aftermath of the midterms. So the results are almost in. Everything's kind of still in flux. We'll show you what's still left unaccounted for, but this is the problem that we're facing. So the red wave didn't actually materialize. It actually was a red ripple. So Democrats are doing a victory lap because it wasn't as bad as expected. So we'll break that down a little bit, but this is going to have huge implications, not just in the U.S. but also globally as well. Let's just take a look. This is the U.S. Senate map here. This is Real Clear Politics. So there's still three Senate races left to be decided. One of them is Nevada. They're slow walking the votes in Nevada, and the other is Arizona. That's where the big controversy is. This is where I am right now, at the epicenter of all this controversy in Maricopa County, Arizona. And Georgia is yet to be decided. That's going to go to a runoff between the Democrat incumbent Raphael Warnock and the Republican challenger Herschel Walker. That's going to be on December 6th. Now you can see where the land lies here. The Republicans have a one-seat edge right now. It's likely that the Republicans are going to take Nevada, take that Senate seat. If we go back to the U.S. Senate, please.
Oh, yeah,
We're not there yet.
right.
Yeah, thanks. So Nevada is going to take that Senate seat for Republicans. It's likely, although not certain, the way things are going with the vote counting. Arizona, the Democratic incumbent has the lead, Mark Kelly, over the challenger, Blake Masters, a Republican. But the votes could come in at the last minute and change that. But at the moment, that would leave the Georgia runoff to be decided. If the Republican Herschel Walker loses, it would go back to a tie in the U.S. Senate. And the tie-breaking vote is with Kamala Harris, the vice president, who is a Democrat. If they win in Georgia, it'll be likely a seat majority for Republicans. So that's what we're looking at here. Again, it could change one or two seats, but so it's a tie or a Republican majority in the Senate. Massive implications for U.S. foreign policy, but also a lot of domestic policy issues as well. So that will decide where the country's headed. Now, for the House of Representatives, the Republicans were a massive margin. We're talking about 20 to 30 seats. That's what the polling looked like in election. It didn't materialize. So there's still around 26 seats still outstanding the votes. And so the margin's going to probably look like, and a lot of those seats in California, for instance, and also there's some in Arizona and elsewhere. So what's that mean? There's probably going to be a Republican majority, but it's going to be a slim majority. It's going to be sort of 8 to 10 seats. Now, what does that mean? Well, we'll explain to you what that means a little bit later, but suffice to say, that's bad news for the Democrats. It's going to handcuff Joe Biden for the next 2 years if Joe Biden survives. The governor's races, as you can see in gray here, those two states in gray, dark gray, that's Nevada and Arizona. Those are two governor's races yet to be decided. As well, there's still votes out in Alaska. So, what does that mean? It might not mean a lot nationally, but if you consider Nevada and Arizona are two swing states that could do major election reforms with their new governors and new senators, for instance, and other offices, that means that those swing states might be tightening up their election rules, and you won't see this 1 week of vote counting. We don't have in Arizona. We have election week or election month now. A lot of people are looking at this, scratching their heads, saying, "What is going on?" We'll show you some details of that. So here's the big controversy. It all began on election day. Soon as the polls opened, 30% of the voting centers in Maricopa County. This is the biggest county in Arizona. You can't win Arizona or decide an election unless Maricopa County is done counting its votes. And they had defective voting machines. So there were problems with the printing of the ballots. The scanners weren't picking it up. And it was also centered in a lot of Republican dominated precincts. So a lot of people are suspicious that there might have been foul play. What's going on here? The result is this potential disenfranchisement, voter suppression. That was literally at the beginning of play. on election day, and it got worse from there. And so now we're in a situation where, and this is an article here, Arizona's elections are an international embarrassment, and there's commentary here that's worth reading from a few different commentators on this issue. But they're still counting the votes. There's still votes coming in, and we won't be able to call these races now. And they're talking about Monday. First, now it's early next week. So 48 other states have managed to figure out how to count their votes. Bigger states, in fact. Arizona, however, has this other system of running their elections. And at the moment, it is a Democrat-run electoral system. The Secretary of State is actually running for governor against Kari Lake, Katie Hobbs. So she didn't recuse herself from this situation. So a lot of people are looking at this as a conflict of interest. But not only that, it's just not working. It's become an embarrassment nationally, and they're just basically burying their heads on this and saying everything's fine. The election commissioner who's in charge of all this, believe it or not, his name's Bill Gates, and Bill Gates is all over CNN saying everything's fine, it's no problem, we're just being extra careful. But you can see what they're holding up potentially the U.S. Senate in some kind of a result there. They're also holding this up for the state of Arizona. So this is, and the AG's in there as well, Secretary of State. These are state legislatures races. State legislatures are going to decide election rules as they do in each state. Huge implications, and nobody knows what the results are. And there's a lot of reports of problems and potential election fraud, mismanagement, stakes, whatever you want to call it, massive reports coming in all different shapes and sizes. And a lot of people are suspicious, considering this was the epicenter of the 2020 electoral scandal as well. So all these people were called election deniers, and now they've been vindicated in a way because of this debacle that's unfolding here. So will Kari Lake is running for governor. She's in the middle of all this right now. I think we have a clip from her, and she kind of explains where things are at from her perspective.
There are over 620,000 ballots left to be counted. More than 380,000 of them, Chris, are people who took their early mail-in ballot, didn't want to mail it, didn't want to use one of those drop boxes. They chose to walk it up on election day to a polling place and hand it to a poll worker. And these are people who are going to go heavily Republican, and they have not been counted yet. The vast majority, we believe, of these votes left to be counted are going to go heavily in our favor, and they haven't been counted. Maricopa County in Arizona has been slow to count their votes. Once again, Maricopa County slow rolling the results, and it causes problems. It causes distrust in the system, and it really it hurts the whole country. Everyone's waiting to find out, will Blake Masters pull out a victory? I believe he will. I'm 100% certain we're going to win, but we need to get a system in place where we actually have results on election night. This is ridiculous. I've been sounding the alarm since 2020 with that election, which had major problems, and nobody wanted to talk about it. They called me an election denier. Well, here we are, 2 more elections since then, including the primary and this one, and we have the same problems. We can't have Arizona constantly holding the entire country up with election results. And when I win, when they announce my victory, and I think it will be soon, and we're going to win handily, we're going to get to work to restore faith in our elections.
So that's fighting talk from Kari Lake. She's a Republican in this race at the moment. It's 50.3%, and Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, and 49.5% Kari Lake. That's with 78% of the votes turned in, supposedly, depending on the reporting is not super accurate. It really depends on who you trust on the reporting. So we'll see what happens. Who knows? Anything's possible in this kind of electoral environment. That's all I'll say. It's very uncertain what the results will be, although she's very confident, Kari Lake, that she's going to win, that those are all Republican votes hanging to be counted. But in this kind of environment, it's completely chaotic. There's a lot of things being said, a lot of things that people just don't know, and there's still truckloads of ballots appearing from these different districts. The problem here, Mike, is that Arizona, because of COVID-19, um, and other policies are sending out massive mail-in ballots. They don't know how many ballots are out there. And so then you get these returns. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to happen, signature verifications. I think it's probably going to be rife for fraud, just because of the scale of the mail-in ballots. This is what people have been warning about for years. And the one side it tends to favor mail-in ballots is the Democrats, because statistically more Democrats are voting early and by mail. More Republicans want to go in on the day and cast their vote. So you can see the schism that's been created here. And so the other thing that is, because of COVID, they got rid of local precincts and they did these massive voting centers, they call them. So less places to vote, bigger voting operations. But as you know, when you centralize everything, if there's any problems in the design, the management, or the administration, or technical, it reverberates more quickly through the system, and you can't locate the problem, funny enough. And so getting rid of local precincts and things like this, that's an accountability issue as well. So a lot of people want to go back to paper ballots in Arizona. Certainly the rural counties are pushing that in the courts. But Maricopa County is in a world on its own, and is very much a fight, partisan fight here between Democrats and Republicans to wrestle control over a lot of things, including election processes. But let's look at some of the big takeaways of the midterm elections here. J.D. Vance won his Senate race in Ohio, and you have to realize this is a best-selling author who wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy, about sort of lamenting the demise of the Rust Belt and working class America. He's gone and run for Senate, a total political novice. He's won, and that's a big, big win in a state like Ohio. And that used to be a swing state, and it's very much a Republican state now. So that's a major sort of thing, and you're going to see him as a kind of intellectual now in the Senate. So there's a different kind of breed of politician. There's a few other people, young people like this, newcomers into politics on the Republican side, citizen politicians, they're called. Some were successful, some made it in, some didn't, but ran very strong races, like Tiffany Smiley for governor in Washington, and there's some others as well. Carrie Lake, you could probably put in that category too. Her race is yet to be decided. So that's a big takeaway. That's something new in American politics, and some people would say interesting, maybe even